Every week, I take your questions, and this weekend, I got a barrage of them about how the president's new approach to the H-1B visa, that is for highly talented individuals, would change the dynamic of labor in the United States. I'm Bradley Sherman, and this is Population Next. And every other week, I'm taking your questions, helping you get a better sense of where our people and populations are moving and how these shifts might impact labor and consumer behaviors. So, to give you a little bit of backstory, the president and his administration has been very focused on rooting out illegal immigration in this country, and they have been wildly successful, purportedly removing 1.5 million individuals from the United States. Now they're shifting their attention to other forms of immigration, like the H-1B visa, charging now $100,000 for applicants. So, what does this all mean? Well, let's give some context to what the population dynamics are. If you follow me for a long time, you know that there are three kind of governing issues moving our population forward, or in this case, backward. The first is that we have had declining birth rates for decades. This is slowly eroding the number of people that are moving into the labor force in the coming years. We also have a very aging population in the United States. This is not dissimilar to places like Europe, China, Japan, or South Korea. Simply, our population is getting older. And as the population gets older, there are typically fewer people to go around. So, what's the main source of labor and growth and dynamism in the populations that are seeing their birth rates decline and their population's age? Well, that's immigration. There's no denying it. So the shift that's happened pretty remarkably fast in this country is that we've gone from being a very pro immigration, some people would argue too pro immigration country, to being one that's very restrictive. And this is changing the dynamics just about everywhere. So let me give you a sense of this. In the next 5 to 6 years, certainly by 2031, the United States, which was projected to grow for another 10, 20, or even 30 years, will suddenly see its population stop growing. We need people to run businesses. We need people to buy products and services. So this shift, which looked like a long way off, is now in the immediate horizon. The attention focused primarily on quote unquote illegals or undocumented immigrants was swift, is still going on city by city in this country. But this new affront on highly skilled talent, man, that's a wholly new one and one that we should really pick apart. You see, for the big firms, those multi-billion-dollar companies, the Apples, the Microsofts, the Metas of the world, this won't impact them too much. Yes, it'll be more cost on their bottom line. Yes, they might pass more of that cost onto you, the consumer. Yes, there's probably some more headaches in their HR departments, but they will likely continue to bring in the talent they need in order to fulfill their mission objectives, which is to build new, innovative products to serve to Americans and people around the world. But what about everyone else? See, this is a big lingering question here because H-1B visas are not just used by the big tech companies. They're used in scientific endeavors. They're used in Fortune 500 companies. They're used in budding entrepreneurial settings like startups. And these organizations might have a harder time bringing in this talent now because it might, in fact, be cost prohibitive. Now, the argument is always very clear on this. We'll just hire domestic. And while that sounds great, and it's very much part of the Make America Great Again agenda, it doesn't necessarily jive with reality. Because if these people are being brought in from overseas, typically it's because there is a need that cannot be met here in the US. Now, I'm not saying there aren't bad actors out there. There always are, and I'm sure there are people that are abusing the system. But this is like taking a sledgehammer to open a walnut. It's not necessarily the best approach if we want to remain a truly innovative and forward-thinking country. You see, we rely on labor here coming in from overseas. That's part of what makes the dynamism of America so great. And while many people will say, well, America just runs off the backs of cheap labor, that is not true. Yes, of course, cheap labor certainly fits into this. But the reality is that immigrants and the sons and daughters of immigrants actually are responsible for a huge amount of wealth creation and innovation across the United States. So imagine you're a firm and you get slapped with this $100,000 fee to bring in new talent from overseas. What will you do? What will you do if you can't find that right fit domestically to fill that role? Well, you'll look into offshoring. And that offshoring is something that's very murky. It's something that's harder to track, harder to conceptualize for most people. But it's very likely that some of our greatest talent that we might find in other countries might choose to stay in their home countries. So, for a country like India, which sends a lot of great minds to this country, India might see a net benefit from this action. There are other parts of this too that we haven't quite considered yet. And the reality is that our demographic situation, our people problems in the United States, where we're now going to hit a threshold of our population that stops growing by 2031, that's already happening in nations across the world. Specifically, in many of our competitor nations, places like China, places like Western Europe. And what these countries are doing are not putting up barriers to bringing in highly skilled talent. They're actually lowering barriers to that. See, we're in this space now where we've got actual global talent competition for the highly skilled workers that we're now putting up a barrier to bring into this country. And even now, just on the heels of the president's announcement, we've seen that the United Kingdom is stripping down their barriers, following other countries like France and Germany and the Netherlands. So, in a low growth population world where we simply have a limit to the number of people that we can reach, that we can pull into our economies, those people that help drive innovation, those people that help drive economic growth, well, we will likely see decline. And this is not hyperbole. This is simply the way the economy works. So I'd like to get your thoughts on this. What do you think about the H-1B visa restrictions? Do you think that the increased fee to $100,000 per person is realistic? Or do you think it's yet another challenge to America's population future? I'm Bradley Sherman. Again, this is Population Next. Keep your questions coming. I look forward to hearing from you every other week, and I try to get to as many of these questions as possible. If you haven't yet already, please feel free to subscribe to my Substack at populationnext.com. That's populationnext.com, where I dig into some of the biggest population news of the day and help chart for you what our demographic future means for your home, your community, and your business. Thanks again for joining.